You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
I'm back. Rudrance for Black and White Sports 2. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about this Super Bowl to pay-per-view situation. Yesterday, I did a video and got a little traction about something the former head of ESPN said, a guy that ran the company for like 20 years, ran it straight into the ground, to be honest with you, as far as ratings go. It's never recovered, by the way. It hasn't. Somebody that was let go from the company because he was heading straight into a cocaine extortion scandal. That's right, John, Cocaine Cowboy Skipper, as I like to refer to him as. He's now, him and Dan Le Batard, they run Meadowlark Media. Yeah. In case you're wondering, it's woke off the charts. He is the creator of Woke Center. That's right. So anyway, in true, are you sure you're off the powder fashion? He suggested yesterday that the Super Bowl should become a pay-per-view event. Now, as you can imagine, that got a lot of people in the comments section worked up. It did. It started to get a lot of traction across the sports world because people were like, no, I come right out and said, if they do it, I'm not watching the Super Bowl. Hell, I cover it for a living. I'm not watching it. Okay, I'd be out. That's just all there is to it. He was suggesting a $200 to $250 pay-per-view price. I mean, it's one of the most global, elitist kind of takes you will ever hear in your life. You want to talk about being so disconnected from the sports fan, the everyday, on-the-ground sports fan, especially when you got more people that are, frankly, even starting to cut themselves out of streaming. They're starting to go back to antennas. There's a whole movement around that. Okay, where people are like, enough is enough. I'm not spending any money on television, okay, or very little money. And then he's suggesting a price that's utterly insane. Well, Florio, luckily, did touch on this today. He wrote an article. Florio is a lawyer, and he wanted to talk about this because he says there's a couple of things that may actually prevent this from happening. But he seems to admit it's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, one of the things I've been doing lately is going to PFT's comment section because you'll get some honest and brutal truth from that comment section. And NFL fans are pissed over this. They don't want this to even look. People are equating this as even worse than the NFL suggesting neutral site championship games. Okay? This is much worse than that. All right? I mean, that's bad, and I thought it was the shittiest idea the NFL could come up with, and the NFL actually came up with that, and don't get me wrong, that's eventually probably going to happen. Ugh. Terrible. When the NFL ever removes the Super Bowl from free over-the-air TV, Congress may immediately strip the NFL of its critically important broadcast antitrust exemptions. Here is how it works. The NFL, as underscored by the American Needle decision from Supreme Court in 2010, consists of 32 distinct businesses. The league cannot engage in collective business practices and strategies such as fixing prices or setting non-player compensation. The NFL enjoys two important antitrust exemptions. First, the federal labor laws allow these 32 businesses to use one set of employment rules for players because it operates as what's known as a, quote, multi-employer bargaining unit. Second, a specific act of Congress from the early 1960s created an exemption for the NFL from prohibition for selling broadcast rights to its games as a group. Without the broadcast antitrust exemption, the league couldn't say to the networks, quote, you can buy a package of our games. We decide which games you get. Instead, the networks would do business directly with the teams, like NBC does with Notre Dame. There would be a Cowboys package, and at the other end of the spectrum, a package for the least interesting team. It would potentially result in fewer total dollars, and it would test the limits of the willingness of owners to continue to share revenues. It would be a real issue. But look, he doesn't know that will prevent them from doing that for sure. If and when the NFL were to decide to take the Super Bowl away from the people, why wouldn't Congress react by stripping the NFL of its broadcast antitrust exemption? ? There's another reason for the NFL to shy away from chasing pay-per-view dollars. If the league charges $100 or whatever to watch the Super Bowl, there's no way 100 million people will tune in. And that's a huge for the NFL. That's what I said yesterday. All right. They had 100, and I believe it ended up being 118 million people watch. I don't think they get 25 million people to watch. I don't think they get 20 million people to watch. My guess is it would drop to somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 million people. I mean, which is, would they really, the NFL's got this thing, they love to brag about television ratings, like on playoff games and the Super Bowl. They love that bragging element to their business, not to mention all the advertising dollars that come with that. It justifies a large chunk of billions the networks pay. That said, the NFL for the first time has sent a major primetime package to essentially a pay-per-view platform. I did not think about this yesterday, but Florio is right. They sent it to Amazon Prime, okay? But the biggest difference is a lot of people already had Amazon Prime because it gives you benefits to ordering their products for other reasons, okay? Things to do with actual products you buy off their site, whether it's shipping, yada, 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 okay? There was a built-in massive subscriber base to Amazon Prime, all right? And if 25 million people pay $100 each for the Super Bowl, that's $2.5 billion in revenue from one game. Wow. That is pretty crazy. At a certain point, the revenue outweighs the consequences. At a certain point, a league obsessed with making as much money as possible will have to at least consider the pros and cons of making the ultimate direct-to-consumer cash grab. If they did, the playing surface for the Super Bowl wouldn't be as shitty as it was 5 days ago. And I mean, this got some real backlash in the comment section here. Wow, this is an even worse decision in the NFL than if the NFL moved the conference championship to a neutral location. You don't really get the whole math equation around it. I bet 80% of people would not watch the Super Bowl if they had to pay for it. This thing's got a 37-0 ratio on it. Or there would be parties and bars airing it to tens to hundreds of people. The ad money is what drives the ship. TV. The bids by stations to actually get the game. The viewership would instantly drop over 60% over a year at a minimum. Shake my head. I think it would be a worse drop than that. I truly do. I think you're closer to like 80-85% of viewers. Personally, if the NFL did that, I'd be done with professional football. And somebody brings this up later, and it's interesting. These ideas seem to be escalating, just like neutral sites for the conference championships. Terrible ideas. People are really paying attention to some of the ideas floating out of the NFL right now, and people hate those ideas. This is also very interesting. As we know, there is a lot of fire out there, true fire, around the idea that NFL games are rigged. Okay, a lot of people don't realize how big that's become. Okay, it's not a few 100,000 fans anymore. Okay, if 100 million people watch the game, I bet you 10 million of them believe it's rigged now, all right? Or scripted, one of the two. And what I mean by that is actually scripted in the way of we would like to see and we would like to help out and steer in the direction of, let's say, the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes is great for business. You get the point. They absolutely should, with officiating being what it is. It's hard to find a discernible difference between the NFL and the WWE. This guy's making a joke. He got some downvotes, but in other words, what he's saying is the WWE is on pay-per-view. Okay, and it's starting to be hard to tell the difference for a lot of fans between the WWE. We know that's scripted. AEW is scripted. We follow wrestling on this channel some. So you get the point. Would they? Yes. Would I ever pay for it? No. 50-2. Let me just give him an upvote. The NFL would hurt itself if it ever made the Super Bowl pay-per-view. Personally, I would only pay if my team were in the game, so most years I'd skip it. I'm sure many have similar feelings. Let's give him an upvote too. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing as well. Would you pay for it if your team's not in it? And here's the other part of this. Would you even want to watch the NFL playoffs anymore? Or even the regular season, knowing that at the end of the year there's $100 buy, okay, or a $200 buy, or a $250 buy to see what happens. What incentive is there for a Texans fan to pay $100 for a Chiefs and Eagles game? And look, that's one of the better actual football games we've had in a long time and one of the better matchups going in. And I still think you would weed out a lot of people. If it does, count me out for good. The field was a mess for both teams. The halftime was awful. I said I turned off the halftime. I didn't even let it start. I just turned it off. I think I watched something on YouTube. And the product is not as good. Personally speaking, I don't think the NFL is as good as it was 15 years ago. It really gets me that they find these guys for conduct detrimental to the team or the league, but we have a pregnant woman grabbing her crotch in front of 113 million people, and that's okay. This league is not headed in the right direction for me. Of course it will go to pay-per-view. They take it for granted all these people who built the league and all they want is more cash. I won't pay to see it unless my team is in it. Maybe. I'm sick to death of the greed these folks possess. Unless my team is in the big game, why on earth would I pay to watch something I normally get for free? If it wasn't for fantasy football, I wouldn't watch any other games as it is. If they go to $100 pay-per-view, I'm not watching every year. I don't care enough about, let's say, the Chiefs versus Eagles to pay that much for it. Sorry. I'd imagine this will cut down playoff viewership in addition to Super Bowl viewership. If your team isn't in the playoffs or gets eliminated, do you really want to keep watching if you have no intention of paying to see the finale? I mean, that's exactly the point. And I mean, it goes on and on down there. It's crazy. It's crazy. Skipper ran ESPN into the ground, so why wouldn't the league listen to all these suggestions? The NFL is only relevant as far as gambling, and fantasy football can take it. The F around and find out factor is very much in play. A lot of people are talking about it. You know, at what point do you draw a line with the NFL? It's crazy. This is garnering real fan reaction that this is getting floated around. People are talking about it. I mean, if I'm to put a 0 to 100% chance on this happening, I assume I can say 5%. I don't think it would happen. But you just never know these days with the NFL. The fact that they would float neutral site conference championship games is sort of beyond me. That not only got floated, but they attempted to take Damar Hamlin dropping out on the field. A near tragedy. And they tried to loop it in the back way to test the idea of neutral site championship games. That's all it was. They decided, hey, we got an opportunity here. We've been talking about this for years. Let's just see if we can figure out how to make this work. Let's test it out. This is a perfect opportunity. As bad as the NFL looked, they were still going to try it. Luckily, things worked out where that didn't happen. But the backlash on the conference championships was something else. You want to talk about backlash on this? I do think you would have lawmakers hauling Roger Goodell in the NFL before them having to answer a lot of damn questions if the Super Bowl turned into a pay-per-view event. Keep in mind, do you know how many millions of people are this close to giving up on this league anyway? It's like the NFL is trying to do all they can to finally get rid of a certain group of fans. Looks like maybe 80% of them is what they're hoping to cut. Honestly, this has gotten so much fire, I think the NFL actually needs to come out and make a statement on it. Even though they didn't float the idea, it's starting to become that big of a thing. Tell me what you think, Black and White Sports 2 fans. This is nuts that we're even talking about the idea of a Super Bowl pay-per-view. This is the most significant thing that John Skipper has brought up since he said, oh, I got a Coke problem and I'm out. Peace, I'm out. Till next time. You sure you got rid of that problem with an idea like this? Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.